To start the 1 hour race. This is a standard start, not behind the safety car. A good way to start off on Sunday. Red light still there. Hold your positions, gents. Now it goes to green, and immediately James Thorpe dives to the inside in the Hertz coloured car, the gold striped black machine down the inside, takes the lead. Actually, that's navy blue and gold, isn't it, that car? As they head through the first corner at La Source and dive down the hill, picking up speed quickly. A couple of the Alphas coming through there. Rory Jack, I noticed, picking up speed, and Guillaume Collinet also trying to pick their way through. They'll be trying to use the more nimble Alpha with the 1750 twin cam motor through Eau Rouge, now climbing up to Radillon for the first time. A brilliant sight this Sunday morning. One of the Lotus Cortinas there coming through. That's Ivan Petov-Ivanov as he comes through in that classic white with green stripe car. Good start to get them through the first corner, Andrew.
Yes, but bad start from John Spears in the blue car. Dropped to 4th place from pole, but now just taking 3rd place back and taking 2nd place back as they dive here right-handed and then head up the hill.
Through Les Combes for the first time, Bruce, and it's the notchback version of the Mustang that we're looking at here, the mid-1960s car with a 289 cubic inch engine. They are holding sway at the moment at the front of the field, Bruce.
As you'd expect. I mean, as long as they got it neat and tidy through Eau Rouge and Radillon, they could use the power all the way up the Kemmel Straight. And of course, there's no chance the Lotus Cortina on the fast bits is going to keep up, but it's the way the Alphas are coming through here, because they've been much better. We saw 1, 2, 3 of them go past the leading Lotus Cortina, and the 4th one is tucked in behind.
Down the hill is where the Alphas can commit. That's where they have to make hay. The first sector of the lap, which goes up to the breaking point of Les Combes, that's not their territory. This run now, down from Les Combes all the way down to exiting Curve Paul Frere or Stavelot, that's where they're going to make their time, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce, at Goodwood a couple of years ago, they had a Mustang-only race, you remember?
They did, in celebration.
About 24 of them came from nowhere.
Or you find quite a few of these were in that field, because a lot of cars get sort of brought back out if there's a special event at Goodwood, and then you've got to use them, having created them.
Yeah,
but good to see.
We will have a Mustang, a contemporary Mustang Challenge race, non-championship, at Le Mans at the 24 hours this year. I'm hearing somewhere over 30, 35 cars will be coming across with full performance for 2 races at Le Mans, one on Friday lunchtime, and yes, Friday lunchtime, and one on Saturday. We'll cover that for you in sound and vision. 91.2 FM for the radio at Le Mans again this year from test day onwards.
Just want to point out, great little performance. The lead Mini, it's down just outside the top 10. Romain Gardurel, and he's again, you're talking about points on the circuit where something nimble can gain a bit of an advantage. But Romain is getting ahead of some cars that, in terms of natural pace, are quicker. But you know, Isigonis got that Mini right from the very outset, and once they took it racing, you know, it was just fun, but it was also remarkably quick.
Little spin by Georges Rochietta in the number 3 Mini, the red car with the black roof. He has pointed it in the right direction. Probably actually just kept his foot down and pointed the front wheels roughly where he wanted to go, and it pulls you straight.
Upset he's not in his TVR, which he's raced a lot in this series in the past, as George. 4 Mustangs then, and now John Spears is really fighting back after that poor start, and he'll hand the car over to Nigel Greensell, of course. But
that's the lighter blue car, the number 14, second across the line here. Then side by side for 3rd with Bram Bontrup and Baz Jansen. Which one of those cars will prevail in the braking area to La Source? The red Mustang with the classic black bonnet.
Spears into the lead.
Well, he's got the pace, and I tell you what, just coming into the bus stop was a real twitch from James Thorpe, who did very well to get that straight again. I thought, is John Spears going to try and dive by into the bus stop? But you know, he's been around the block, decided that wasn't a big enough gap. But again, a better exit onto the start-finish straight. But James Thorpe isn't finished with the Hertz stripe car tucked in behind. But John Spears had the pace to qualify on pole position, and now he looks like he's going to pull away.
Yeah, he got a much better run through the right-hander as they go uphill from Eau Rouge, and a little bit of a sideways moment from that number 67 car that was leading at the end of the lap. And by the time they get onto the Kemmel through that little kink, all uphill here to Les Combes, and that Spears number 14 car is making its bid for freedom. So not sure what went on at the start there, but whatever it is, either John missed a gear or wasn't happy with something.
Well, I tell you what,
side by side. Sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
John. Just to say that when you had the head-on shot looking at the grid, John Spears' headlights suddenly dim. And then they came on fully bright. At that point, James Thorpe was coming through from third place, thank you very much, and took the lead up the inside to La Source. But now in front, John Spears is showing the sort of pace you'd expect from him. But for poor James Thorpe, we saw another twitch from him. That was between Eau Rouge and Radiant. And of course, you lose that momentum you're desperate to keep, and then it pays out cost you the whole way up that long straight.
And Bruce, you were right to point out the Alpha, I don't know what we would call them, the tribe of Alphas, the Alfa Romeo Giulia sprint challenge, if you will, coming through.
Frivolity, a fun pack.
Yes, like it. The top 4 are Mustangs, and then the next 3 cars are all those Alfa Giulia Sprint GTAs, the 1965 cars, led by Christian Albrecht with Rory Jack and Guillaume Collinet in third place of that coterie of Alphas, and they are the top sub-2 litre cars with those 1750 engines. Andrew?
When I started watching touring car races, it was all about Jaguars.
Yes.
3.4s. People like Graham Hill drove Grand Prix stars of the time drove them, and then suddenly somebody arrived with a Ford Galaxy, and it changed the whole game. And then the Mustangs came and so on, and Camaros. But back in those days, the British industry, of course, motor industry ruled.
Yeah.
And the Jaguar was the thing to have.
So tartan green Mini there, having a go at the back of, that's Mark Drain, that's Mini, that is Roman Gradel, with Simon Nobili in there as well, and Francois Rivas and his Alpha. But those Alfa Giulias in the darker red with a variety of the front panel colours to differentiate them, as they did in period on the team cars, Bruce.
No, always, and I love the fact that historic liveries, echo those. But again, it's looking at touring car racing that's got diversity in it. We've got the grunt of the Mustangs up, but this little pack, an Alfa Romeo, a Lotus Cortina, and a couple of Minis nipping this way, nipping that way, trying to find an advantage on the slower parts of the circuit. That's the diversity that I love about racing from the 60s.
That's a completely different style of the Alfa to Lotus Cortina. Yesterday we were talking about how computers design cars these days, they will start to look the same. Completely different lines. But
I would submit, Andrew, that to this day, even though Alfa is part of a huge conglomerate and has platform shares with a variety of other badged cars, you can still tell an Alfa in the car park, if only for the shield grille, and whether it's a new Junior, little lock up there by the number 24 driver. That was the Cortina just coming through the final corner.
Yeah, that's Ivanov, who's had broken up the 4-car hegemony of Alfa Romeo. He's in 4th in that pack, and Ehrlich is the Alfa Romeo who's dropped behind him. But a great little scrap, nip and tuck here and there.
And now the 2 Minis are racing wheel to wheel as well, right behind that Alfa.
Still a little bit chilly this morning, air temperature 13 Celsius. We got down to 8 or 9 at the very coldest yesterday afternoon, although bizarrely, as we went into the evening and the clouds dropped a bit, it warmed up again. But the track temperature is still cold. Highest we've seen with the track temperature was about 18 or 19. It's down at 14. Lowest we saw was single figures last night with the rain coming down. Didn't finish racing till just after midnight last night. A little bit of an earlier finish tonight. Nice to see a number of the drivers at our hotel yesterday, and 1 or 2 of the cars that were finished trailered up in the car park. Mustang on a trailer, I noticed last night. I don't know how they got that out of the car park this morning. They must have gone out the staff car park entrance. I noticed they'd moved on the concrete block. That was a fine piece of driving to get out of there. What's Alfa Mini Lotus Cortina?
What's happening in the front of the field, though? We saw John Spears take the lead at the start of the previous lap. He's 4.2 seconds a lap later, so he's pulling clear. That was quite clearly obvious. But James Thorpe has still got a battle on his hand, because Bad Jansen in the 204 Mustang, 3rd in the run of 4 Mustangs in the front of the field, is only a second and a bit behind, and a second behind him is Abraham Bontrup. So they're going to have a good battle to the end. But John Spears, it's a 1-hour race. Bear in mind, we haven't even got through 10 minutes of it. Nigel Greensill will already be suited and booted in the pits, waiting to take over the lead Mustang.
Yeah, it's a good point you mentioned there, because the pit lane will open in just on 15.5 minutes time. So that's at 35 minutes to go. The pit lane will open.
And Bontrup was all a bit wide and up on the curbing there. No, cars twitching around.
Of all the cars in that quartet of Mustangs, James Thorpe is the one who seems to have the loosest setup, and that tail is starting to wag the dog a little bit. He's doing a fantastic job of keeping it as straight as he can, but it's costing him.
Is it just me, Bruce and Andrew, or is that... Well, always, yes. But is the back end of that car just sitting up possibly a little higher than the other cars around it? Certainly the lighter coloured car behind James Thorpe of Bas Jansen looks like it's just... got the rake in the opposite direction. If anything, that's nose up rather than tail up, which I suppose is weight transfer onto the back wheels. Leading out in elegant isolation, and sadly, one of the Alphas in the pit lane is the number 10 car. That's Horst Baumann's car.
Yeah, James Thorpe drives a lot of racing cars. He's on the management team at Goodwood, actually.
Big sideways
moment.
Bas Jansen.
But James is best known for racing the Lister Flatiron, which he's had a lot of success in. We won't go into that, it's not racing here this weekend, but lots of Listers are. But terrific battle between this pair, but Spears pulling away from the field. Just
interesting difference in lines into La Source from Jansen and Montrup there. From James Thorpe and Bas Jansen there. I think either of them really got any major advantage or disadvantage. The 76 car in fourth position is the in third position, excuse me, and actually he's lost a place there, hasn't he? So that is Bram Brontum, so beginning to spread out a little bit at the front of the field.
They do a lot of nice graphic things in this series, and what I like is the numbers on the rear, the little numbers on the rear. So with a going away shot, you can see the numbers of the cars. And not any other series does that.
It's a very nice touch, not just for us, but for people watching, on all the screens and watching around the circuit. And certainly been a lot of people here over the last 2 and a bit days. Haven't seen too many come in yet on the Sunday morning, but we got in nice and early just to sort of ramp up our enthusiasm and get to the production facility.
Yeah, but how about at 7:45 this morning, as we were coming through the town before you dropped down to come in at the source? We're coming in at the La Source end of things. The bakers were open, and there was a steady stream of people going in and out of there to get their fresh baked goods and possibly a little sandwich or something out of there. Beautiful sideways slide, perfectly held there by Bas Jansen in the 204, the cream coloured car. There was a moment when I thought he's not going to get that back, and I was entirely incorrect.
Yeah, down the hill into Bruxelles, he was just looking a little up the inside, and I think he just became distracted, started to brake too late, and he thought there's only one way I'm keeping this on the track, and that's hang the tail out. But he kept it at a fantastic angle, but that would have given hope to Abraham Bontrup, who's in the red and black Mustang in third in that line, in fourth overall, because he's had his sideways moments. We saw a lap ago, didn't we, up at Les Combes. He's starting to close in again. But just remember, James Thorpe is keeping it neat and tidy, but that was the first mistake we saw from Bas Jansen.
All of those cars are 1960. Actually, no, Jansen's is a 66. But I have noticed that the red and black car is distinctively different around the rear under tray area. Not an under tray, but you know what I mean. The rear valance. And he's also got the drilled back window as well to get a bit of airflow through the car. But if you just look underneath that red and black car, there's just a little difference there. They're not all identical in terms of their bodywork. Our leader ploughing his own furrow at the moment.
He is. John Spears is very, very quick indeed, and his line up the hill through the left-hand kink that is the famous Blanchimont corner, he puts it very, very close to the outside line of the circuit there. He certainly is confident, and you can see him steering it on the throttle very much at that point on the circuit.
Had somebody having a moment at the downhill hairpin at Rivage Bruxelles. Again, we have this battle for second place coming into the bus stop. Possibly think the preferred line might be slightly towards the middle of the road there. Maybe a bit more grip. It was very, very wet yesterday. So even if this does dry out as we go through today, it is going to be a brand new green circuit again. Punching out of the final corner across the line, there's nothing in it. John Spears has done the fastest lap of the race with a 3:31. These two separated by 0.2 of a second, and Buffalo Gals round the outside for the second place car, which holds on to it. So a complete reversal of the lines they took last time around. Second place, James Thorpe, went to the more standard racing line. Now let's see who had the problem. That's an Alpha as well, isn't it? So that was actually coming down to Jackie Hicks' corner. And not
was
sure
it Christian Albrecht waiting to see? No, he's come through. Rory Jack has not come through yet, just waiting for him to complete the lap.
It was Horst Baumann again, I think, who had a little sideways moment.
He was our pit visitor, wasn't he? So he's reappraised the car and gone out. Well, I'm very glad it wasn't Jack, because he was trying to keep Christian Albrecht honest in the battle to be the top Alpha for 5th place. But
this is going to go all through the race, this, gents, isn't it, this one?
Still a little bit of spray coming off the tyres, but I think it is drying out. And indeed...
Have you taken the optimism pills this morning?
Well, yes, my colleague here...
I had one job. One job. I'm always looking for the chink where the sunshine might come, but right now I'm enjoying this race as much as the drivers out there. I mean, what could be better? Spa-Francorchamps, and with a lot of power. We heard from James Thorpe yesterday talking about actually rain here is fabulous. It's a circuit that drains very well, but the battle for second place, I was about to say, is going to be sorted by a mistake, and James Thorpe is the driver in second place for now, but somehow still in second. He got it wrong into Bruxelles, went beyond the white line just with 2 of his wheels and came back across. But certainly Baz Jansen must be thinking, my moment is coming sometime. I've just got to get in close, keep harrying him. James Thorpe, that was a good save. That was skin of his teeth.
Overtaking before the start line is a penalty for Michael Erich in the Alpha number 40. He's 8th in class. He'll get a penalty for that.
Yeah, well, he's 11th at the moment, and that'll vault Mark Drain past him. But then the 13th place guy, Rivaz, he's another 6 seconds behind, so just cost him 1 place there.
So that little battle to be the top Mini has been resolved recently in the driver who was second in the Mini train, Simon Nobili, up into 9th place overall. He's got Mark Drain behind him, and then the Guardarell Mini, but they're still having a lot of fun, as is James Thorpe, but he's having to be so defensive now because Baz Jansen, I think, is a little bit quicker, but he cannot find a way by. But got plenty of time to do it. We've still got more than 40 minutes, more than 43 minutes.
And a pit stop, of course.
Of course.
The pit window opens in 8 minutes.
Only a handful of the drivers, about half a dozen, maybe 8, have got 2 drivers in this race. So a lot of the drivers, at least they'll know exactly what the track's like when they go back out after their pit stop.
So the sub-2 litre class headed up in 5th overall by Christian Albrecht in the Alpha number 140. Rory Jack in the 33 is about 7.5 behind. And then in 3rd place, breaking up the Alfa Romeo trio in the same position. I just wonder how James Thorpe feels when he sees actually the whole side of a Mustang, Andrew, in his mirrors from Baz Jansen. He's on the left now, he's on the right. Oh no, he's right sideways across the back of me. Yeah, there'll be a big dive here if Jansen wants to come down the inside. Bram Bontrup just not able to get onto the tail, or maybe not willing to get onto the tail of this wee battle at the moment. Down the hill. You pick up speed so quickly here. I didn't see the race control messaged for everyone to put their lights on beforehand. I love these cars, you know, beautifully prepared. But of course the Mustang of this era was effectively pillarless doors, so there's still a chrome strip across the top of the window glass. You can see that quite clearly on James Thorpe's car with those silver stripes in the sort of semi-Hertz. They were black and gold, the Hertz cars. Great stories of the Hertz GT5 350Hs, which were rented out on a Friday night. Somebody would take them to Riverside or one of the old American circuits, bolt the cage in at home on Friday night, race it on Friday and Saturday, and take the cage out on Sunday and take it back. Baz Jansen, this time outside line, too high there, and surely this time Jansen will get through, but he's lost traction coming off the apex. In American parlance, centre off, got loose, and he's lost that position again. Taking the high line for James Thorpe, Bruce, is paying off round there. I think the stewards may be looking at that if he keeps going all 4 wheels off the track. This
time he was all 4 wheels. Last time he had his left hand 2 wheels off at Bruxelles. But again, a fantastic job. How he got enough traction to actually get back onto the circuit and keep Jansen behind him, anybody's guess.
Strangely, I think there must be more traction out there, because
I think that is high grip tarmac on the start of the runoff.
Yeah, I think
maybe that is it doesn't look like locked up mistake moment. It looks semi deliberate, and that is the line that James Thorpe in that dark blue and silver number 67 is using.
But it has allowed Abraham Bontrapp to nearly get onto their tail. So those three cars at the start of the lap were covered by 3 seconds. It's about a second between. James Thorpe hanging on in second place as he's pushed as they go to Campus corner. Baz Jansen must be thinking, when? It's coming my way. But we've got a spinning Mustang, but not one of our lead quartet, and certainly not raced in on Spa. It would be the best part of 10 seconds. He is now 10 seconds clear in the lead of the race. But the orange Mustang that went round was Phil Mulacek, and we had talked yesterday, Andrew, about the Mulacek family with everything Ford in their collection in the
I think they've got about 20 different Fords from GT40s. Search on the internet, you'll find them and see pictures of them standing in front of their collection.
At RSL_studio, if you want to say hello this morning. Hello to Dave Rowbottom. Thank you very much indeed for your kind words. Watching and listening with Thomas Pitts also watching us this morning. Not sure what part of the world you're in, but this new initiative from Peter Auto bringing you all of the action of their major track-based events this year. Le Mans Classic to come, but before that, in just a couple of weeks' time, Dijon-Prenois for another round of this championship. Outside, inside, Lecombe and La Source, and this time second place has been ceded to Baz Jansen by James Thorpe. Andrew, that's a classic Spa manoeuvre, getting the run out of the final corner.
Finally got it to work, and Bolter was closed up, so we've got a trio of them now battling for second place, and we see the Mustang 89 car go around. He'll sort that out.
That was earlier on. We saw the car recovering, didn't we, the Mulacek car?
Interesting, the beautiful Mustang chrome badges they have, usually on the front of the grille. Lots of different positions, our cars. We've got one with no badge, one with it on the left, and one in the traditional middle position.
The Steve McQueen Bullet Mustang, the 67 1/4 car, that's popularised not having the galloping stallion on the front of the car. There's a couple of them that have got Shelby badges on them as well, I've noticed. There's talk even to today in the Mustang Challenge about whether that impedes the airflow to the radiator and back in period. But I noticed that John Spears has got the full-sized, full galloping Mustang on the front.
He has,
It's not slowing him down at all.
No, it isn't.
Listen to that little 1750 twin cam.
Terrific battle between this Lotus Cortina and the Alfa.
And a stick shift gearbox.
Absolutely.
With the beautiful wipers that come from the outside in, although for racing, of course, they've got the park position as straight up to help the aerodynamics. Coming through traffic now for the leading cars.
Down into the mist. Again, we saw this on the formation.
I think it's just that camera.
Maybe it's just steamed up overnight. It's on the drop down to Pouhon, but because certainly by the time they get to the exit and approach Fagnes, it's clear. We have had a change in that sixth position, even off in the Ford Cortina. Lotus Cortina has just gone past Rory Jack's Alfa, so he's got one more Alfa to pick up, but off if he wants to get ahead of that. That's Christian Albrecht, who's running fifth overall.
Pit window is opening in about a minute.
So not this lap.
I think Spears will stay out a bit longer.
Why wouldn't you, Andrew? He's built up a 9.1 second gap now.
It's his car, he owns it. So stay out.
Are any of those leading drivers driving with the 14 who leads has got John Spears, got Nigel Greensole to come?
Yeah, the others are all solo.
Yeah, I thought so.
Which is, I think, in these conditions, a very big helping hand. Mind you, so is putting Nigel Greensole in your car to do the second part of the race.
It's not going to slow it down, is it?
No.
Right, one thing we do need to keep picking up in this, we haven't got two classes in this. Well, we have, but we've got an extra one as well, because there's a pre-62 class. But Michel Grosfillier should win that, because he's the only driver in that class in his C1 Chevrolet Corvette. But
he is literally in a class of his own, though.
He is. Every lap he's in a class of his own. But what, it's nice and clear. You know, over 2 litres, Ford Mustangs pulling away at the front of the field. And then in behind, it's the battles of the Alfa Romeos, the Lotus Cortinas, the Minis et al.
And there he is. Thank you to our director, clearly listening in.
And just been lapped.
He won't care about that.
No.
Having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Actually, that's Christian Dumoulin he's racing with there in the Mustang number 20.
Oh, I think, sorry, my apologies.
No, it looks very similar to James Thorpe's car, actually. And as the spray clears, again, 2 big white stripes up
Isn't
over the
it
hood.
amazing to think in a few short years, the Corvette, that being the C1, would metamorphosize into the shape that is still fairly recognisable today, although of course the engine's gone into the middle of the car, which is where it was originally meant to be, but they didn't quite feel it was the right thing to do when the Corvette came out. Lee Iacocca and the rest of the team, sorry, no, Lee Iacocca was
He was
Ford,
the
my
Mustang
apologies.
man, yeah.
The original father of the Corvette played about with the idea of putting the engine in the middle, but that's felt low-hanging, almost European-like car that the Corvette became with the C3s onwards.
Yeah, I mean, it was the element. You looked at American cars and they were large, cumbersome beasts back then. I know, Andrew, you were talking about the Galaxy arriving in the British Saloon Car Championship, the size of a sort of oil tanker, but yet suddenly really nimble as to go with its power. Then the Falcons and the Mustangs came to play. Fairly interchangeable, weren't they, the Mustangs and the Falcons in terms of performance? You're going to say Ivan, gone the full name, Dots?
Zora Arkus Duntov.
Duntov, I was trying to remember.
Yeah. There was a mid-engine prototype called Azora. Harley Earl was really, I suppose, given the epithet of father of the Corvette, but Zora did a lot of the design work and gave us an American icon, a global car, much as the Mustang has been in the battles down through the years in those, along with the Camaro when that came along, the pony car battles. So stuff of legend.
Roccietta in the pits, they jacked it up and then dropped it down again. Now they're jacking it up again. So I don't think they've got a problem with maybe the exhaust system or something.
Andrew, I think this one actually came in before the pit window was open, and it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely got a problem. Oh yeah, it's definitely got a problem.
That little red and black Mini down towards the tail of the field, clearly having come in early. So the lead Mini is still, in fact, it's changed back. Simon Nobili has just come into the pit, so it's going back to Romain Guaradelle in his, but that may chop and change. But certainly in terms of pace on the track, Simon was a little bit quicker to get the lead Mini.
And that Mark Drain's car is in, mechanic leaning into the car.
Another car that with just a single wiper, that's not a period feature. But I do like to see the chrome wiper arms. I find nothing more jarring than seeing black wiper arms. Not sure what's going on with the headlights. I presume that is so that they can identify the car when it comes into the pit lane.
What, one on, one off?
And also half blacked out.
Unusual to see a Lotus Cortina without a coloured stripe.
Very unusual.
Usually that sort of olive green, but other colours were available. But this one, Mark Drains, is simply cream all over.
Lovely.
Just to be different, I suppose.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Battle of the Mustangs continue.
Yeah. This is a battle for third place. James Thorpe for so long resisting Baz Jansen, but once Baz got in front, he just suddenly opened out. I thought he was a bit quicker. He's 5 seconds clear. But James Thorpe, we saw from early in the race, his car was looking very, very loose indeed when he got into the braking zones. But the fact that Baz Jansen is now disappearing from him as they go down through the kinks from La Source down the old start-finish straight.
And indeed, we caught it ducktailing its way out of that corner. It is a bit loose. Now that Mustang that spun is in the pits, and pits are getting very busy now.
6 minutes to go before the end of the pit stop window. I really like that colourway. That was a Ford Motor Company racing livery. The bright, almost fire engine gloss red with the gloss black bonnet, roof and boot lid. Quite a lot of people just had the actual hood itself, the opening part of the bonnet, sometimes painted matte black to help with the reflections in sunnier climes.
John, still one of the great moments of my childhood in the days of matte black bonnets was when my father was driving his company car, and the windscreen was suddenly filled with the bonnet that flew back. So that had to be replaced. So for weeks we had a matte black bonnet.
Because it hadn't been painted to match the car.
You know, I just thought the performance just went through the roof, frankly.
Probably another 10 or 15 brake that was worth.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I had it happen in a Cortina GT when it came up. There must have been something fundamentally wrong with the bonnet catches, because it happened to a lot of Cortinas.
Well, yes, ours was the German equivalent. It was a Taunus 20M 2.3 litre. Being a good schoolboy, I had a pocket full of rubber bands and string, as you would in the day, and so we secured the bonnet with that and then continued.
Look, it didn't break the windscreen because they've been laminated in those times, so it did break the windscreen.
But my father then drove with his head through the sunroof.
Excellent.
As you do.
Yes.
I suppose he's sort of 6'5" as well, is he?
No, he's not actually.
I do remember a number of people having that happen to them in the late 60s and early 70s, and that led to, as you think back now, and it sounds odd, but a big selling point of whatever car it was that I was reading the advert for was a secondary bonnet safety catch.
Yes, absolutely.
So that you had to put your fingers under, either had a double click or you had to put your finger underneath. Of course, if you had a bonnet that had an interior bonnet release, then you probably had the Super or the XL version of whatever family box you had bought.
Yeah, not the L for you.
No, absolutely.
Bonnet engineering, GXL, you definitely would have had the bonnet pull.
One we haven't given a shout out to, just in the pits now, the rather unusual white and blue colour scheme of the Hager brothers from Switzerland, Multi and Daniel, and they have just changed drivers.
Yeah, that's another Alfa Giulia Sprinter, the 65 car. Again, just perfectly beautiful shape and proportions on that car. Not the wide-arched versions that you see in other classes. Just absolutely lovely.
John, we did used to see racing the Giulia with the 1300.
Yes.
And that raced against the Mini, so that was an interesting battle.
Well, that was, you had several subclasses as the second place car of Baz Jansen. It's just put the fastest lap of the race in, actually, and it's closed in to 5 seconds on John Spears in the blue. Oh, in fact, there's
Spears.
Spears in the pits as well.
There's Nigel in the blue helmet with the hand-stuck stars around it.
That's Nigel Greensall. Now, this will not be a super quick Le Mans style pit stop. There is absolutely no necessity to do so. There is a standardised minimum pit time. And that looks like, you see, now you're going to say, Hindhoff, you were wrong. That window has indeed, that door has got a frame around it, but it isn't. That is just on the glass, and that all drops down if you wind down. Now, that car has got plexiglass side windows, so that is going to be fixed, but it still has to have the trim on there to make the seal. And of course, something that I loved, not very secure in terms of car security, but the opening front quarter light.
Quarter light. I was just admiring that quarter light as you were talking about it.
It's a thing of beauty, isn't it?
Yeah, not all the Mustangs had it, but certainly.
And not all the racing cars do, because you can put a single side glass in.
And John Spears in an open face helmet. I noticed Nigel's wearing his open face for this.
So 4 Mustangs at the front, 3 Mustangs at the front of the field in, and Ivan Ivanov in the pit lane as well, came in as the leading sub-2 litre car ahead of Rory Jack. But that was because, I'm pretty certain, Christian Albrecht had come in earlier. Yes, he had. So keep an eye out for the number 140 Alfa coming back around. That car is the leader of the sub-2 litre category that has pitted. It's an all-red car, no accoutrement in terms of identifying on the front valance there, the bottom part of the front valance. I was saying about Alfa still retaining their distinctive style. I was having a close look at that new Battery Junior. It was going to be called something else, but it's not built in Italy, so it couldn't be named after an Italian town. Mia Fiori, of course, was one of the places that Fiat had their big factory and named a car after it. But the new Junior, you look at it, and even though I know that it's built on a Stellantis platform that is about 5 or 6 other cars, it is absolutely Alfa Romeo. And I've got to take. I had a little Giulietta Quadrifoglio edition for a while with a 1.9 diesel engine in it, actually, 6-speed manual. That was a super little car, and little family 5-door hatchback. But you never mistook it for anything else in the car park. And Alfa have held on to that.
They have, and I feel very sad by the demise of Lancia, because you look in the 1960s and the 70s, it was, you know, what you had a choice of which stylish, small-engine Italian family sports car you could go to. And, you know, whether you were a fan of a Fulvia or a Giulia, you know, there was something there. And I loved that little bit of battling, and they were quintessentially Italian. And we have to accept that a lot of that has been lost. But you're quite right, an Alfa Romeo is still very much an Alfa.
I had almost back-to-back, actually, as fairly long-term test cars. A Mazda MX-5, which I ran over the winter, believe it or not, and it was fabulous. And then the Fiat 124 Spider, which was based on the same car, but with different bodywork. And there were two entirely different personalities of car. The little Fiat was almost like a smaller version of a Maserati or something like that, with the Fiat badge right on the top of the boot. People didn't know what it was. Huge luggage capacity, little 2-seater manual roof, no electrics on that, but you could put it up and down with one hand in about 5 seconds. It was brilliant. And the little Fiat was white with tan leather seating, and I really bonded with that car, and thought again there, well, you know, I realise this is to a point badge engineering, but I like the fact that they've gone about things their own way, put a different engine in as to the Mazda, a little 1.4 turbocharged rather than the 1.8 or the 2-litre non-turbo in. And, you know, it had 148, 150 horsepower, which doesn't sound a lot nowadays. It was perfectly adequate.
That's very interesting, because I've got an MX-5.
I know you have.
And absolutely right. You can take the hood up and down with one hand.
One hand.
It's brilliantly designed, but I look at the Fiats and I think, yeah, they say it's the same car, but it's not.
Honestly, all right, sitting behind it, the dash is very similar, the buttons are the same. It drove completely differently, Andrew.
Yeah, I've never driven one, so that's very interesting.
Gus has had an Abarth version of one for a while, before he bought his XKR. And he had a lot of fun in that little Abarth. That was the 180 odd horsepower. Same engine, 1.4 turbo, just different stated tube. Now, here's two completely different philosophies of car, Andrew, battling together at Lecombe.
But Jansen hasn't been in, has he? And the window's closed.
Well, I thought he hadn't, but he's listed as having been.
One pit stop, yes.
He
left it very, very late. But
how can he be 10 seconds ahead of Reese? They both made one stop.
Is there an extra driver lane because of the driver change?
Absolutely.
Nigel
putting a throw in.
That's it, yeah. Nigel would have been 20 seconds longer.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay, so that was Baz, who you know, was in that eternal battle with James Thorpe until he got through into second place, but he suddenly gained about 5 seconds, was taking quite a chunk out of John Spears, so it shows how much he was being delayed while behind Thorpe. But again, if you suddenly are gifted 20 seconds, so Nigel Greensol is now 10 seconds behind him. That tallies pretty much, doesn't it?
Does it?
But the chase is on. How much time has Nigel got to give chase? 21.5 minutes. What can he do? We'll see over the next few laps. But Baz Jansen really settled into good pace in those final laps just before his pit stop.
Well, before Nigel got into the car, Baz Jansen's fast time and the number 14 Mustang's fast time were pretty much identical. 3:28.5 is the fastest lap of the race in the over 2 litre category. That is listed against Baz Jansen in the 204, the cream car. It's probably Wimbledon white or something like that, isn't it? It's probably called that. And then 3:28.727 for the Greensol car that John Spears was pedalling earlier on.
More like the oval white. I think it's more of a cricket
it
white.
Is actually, yes, a cream tea white.
Yeah, albeit without the green knees. The fielders.
Baz certainly knows his way around here. He's been a class winner in the Spa 6 hours in this Mustang in 2021, 2023. Class winner in 23, not in 21, but he certainly knows his way. Jansen's a Scandinavian name, but he's definitely Belgian, and Baz is obviously Belgian. But he's doing a great job here, but Nigel's just taken 1 second out of him thus far, and how long have we got? 20 minutes. So I think Nigel will pull it back.
Bram Bontrup ahead of James Thorpe, the third and fourth, top four in the over 2 litre class, all Mustangs. Christian Albrecht after the pit stops now, but everybody is still ahead. It's Ed Morris who's taken over that number 24 Ford Cortina in second. Rory Jack still in third. So the Cortina is the blue oval meet in the Alfa Romeo Focaccia, with Andrew Haddon in another Ford Cortina now in fourth position, ahead of Romain Guadarel in the first of the minis. It's a couple of seconds ahead of Simon Nobili.
Andrew is racing with Mark in the Mark Train car now, isn't he? They often share, and they indeed were second in Barcelona. Jansen, Greensall, Bontrup, Thorpe, 4 Mustangs. What a sight here at Spa. Now Albrecht, who races all kinds of different cars, loving it there and leading the under 2 litre category. And we got 3 Brits in a row.
That was Simon Nobili dispatching one of the Cortinas, not a battle for position there. I think that was Stéphane Leperchois in the number 44 car as he went up the hill.
Certainly feel for some of the drivers to do multiple races in the Peter Auto Classic, because we've got 2 pit lanes here and you could finish in one and have to scurry.
Very good
Not
point.
inconsequential hill and up many flights of stairs to get to the top pit to get to your car to do the next race. So you have to hope that if you're running 2 or 3 races that they're separated by buffer races in between.
Simon Nobili and Malte Heger having a bit of a scrap there, but again not for position. Malte a lap down from the leaders as Nigel Greensall puts in the new fastest lap of the race, and a small matter of 2.2 seconds quicker than the previous best, and he's closed in within 7 seconds of Baz Jansen. 18 minutes to go. 18 minutes is 6 laps maybe, so that is going to be easy enough for Nigel Greensall to catch Baz Jansen. How will the traffic and the conditions play out? It is an old adage in motor racing and has been oft repeated. Catching is one thing, passing is another. However, this is a track, Bruce Jones, where there is room to pass. There's a lot of real estate to be able to take alternative lines.
John, it's not just the room, it's the fact that you've got corners that flow from one to another. So you can, if you can build your momentum, you've got more than a few chances in the lap to make it work. Then, of course, you throw in the mixture of slightly greasy track surface this morning, plus the fact they are doing a little bit of lapping here, but not many. We started with, I think we've still got all the cars on the field, 23 cars. No, one failed to start, which was Horst Baumann's Alfa Romeo Giulia. But no, you can work on a move for several corners in a row rather than relying on one corner per lap in which you're going to have to make your monster move.
Horst did get out in the number 10 car. We saw it having a couple of problems. So I think he did a couple of laps at the very least.
Actually, it says he's done 8 laps, but it's listed him on the screen as a non-starter.
Yeah. Nigel's really scything past the back markers now and closing up on Jansen, taking a second and a half a lap off him. I mean, Nigel's got all this experience of 30 years. I remember him years ago being very quick in the Boss Series, in the Tyrrell, I think, at one stage.
Yeah, no, indeed.
He's raced lots of single series.
Yeah.
He's probably raced more cars than almost any. We had Nick Padmore in here yesterday. He's raced a lot of cars. He doesn't come close to Nigel Greensall.
Boss, not the clothing company, stood for big open single
seaters. Absolutely. The series still continues, but not in the UK. And I covered a few of those races, and they were fun. But Nigel was definitely an extraordinary guy, because he's busier than any other racing driver in the world.
His air miles tally must be fairly mighty. It's both sides of the pond and all across Europe.
An indication, Bruce, of the changing nature of classic and historic racing, in that the Boss series, the big open single-seater series, had everything, Formula 5000s, all of that in there, whereas nowadays you would probably have a category for each of those different cars, because there wasn't enough then, so they just threw them all in together.
It really was a melting pot.
Yeah, and they had a couple of Indy cars in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they had Formula 3000s and all sorts of stuff.
And then
it's all run by a guy called Roger Cowman, a super guy, actually.
Yeah, and so before that, there's been a history, particularly in Europe, of, well, actually, it also been in places like Australia, where you don't have enough cars in one class, and you and you sort of mix them up. But Formula One cars with bicycle wings over the wheels.
Yeah.
When it sort of was the latter day Inter Series, which of course was the massive European sports car series in the 1960s. But it chopped and changed. But it means a lot of machinery doesn't die. It just goes and finds somewhere else to race.
In fairness, there was a history of that. Looking back at some of particularly the Mercedes-Benz would run as Grand Prix cars, and then with a light change of bodywork would run as not touring cars but sports cars. That was the word I was looking for.
In the 50s?
Yeah, back in the 50s.
Yeah. And after that, the Malik U2, of course, did run in a Formula Junior form, and now Ray Malik is winning front-engine Formula Junior with one of the special Formula Junior Maliks, and very little different to the Clubman's cars.
Yeah.
I talked to him at
Designed by his father, Major Arthur Malik.
Yeah, absolutely. A real character.
And Ray stepped back from RML, the company, so instrumental in touring car races. Was the first in the modern era, at least, was the first privateer team to win with the Super Tourer, one with the Cavalier, with David Leslie at the wheel, long before the big purse was put up by Alan Gow and Matt Neal, in fact, won that, who's here this weekend. That David Leslie, God rest his soul, I miss him dearly, particularly at this time of year when we're getting round to Le Mans. I used to love seeing him there working for the old Eurosport. David Leslie never really forgot that. He always thought he should have had that cash prize in the what was the Ecurie Cos Super Tourer. That led to RML getting the works contract, of course.
Here we go then. Greensel closing in, and he's just going to breeze past Jansen.
I don't think Baz has got anything for him here.
He hasn't.
Baz is coming down through Pouhon-1 to the second part of the double left, the double gauche. Sits the car in the middle of the road, that's fine. He's not moving it around, he's not moving in reaction to the blue car behind him. Rides the red and yellow curbs, defensive into Fagnes, and Nigel can bide his time here. He's got performance on his side. Sideways slide through the middle of Fagnes down towards Campus now, and traffic ahead as well. So is this an opportunity for Baz maybe to just delay the inevitable?
He's putting up a fight though, isn't he?
He really is.
It's a Belgian. Yeah,
he really is.
I said he'd breeze past. Well, not exactly, but he'll be by and before the end of the lap, I would suggest.
That number 14 blue car, Bruce, looks absolutely nailed to the ground compared to the other Mustangs.
It does, doesn't it?
I was just about to chip in and explain since the start of the race, and again at the corner where they're just going through now, Blanchimont, that was where John Spears looked so mighty, and that is precisely where Nigel Greensol has had a better exit from Campus, and he's gone through the next right-hander and he's got the momentum, but the car is the only one of the Mustangs in the top four that doesn't look loose. All the others, it's also down to driving style as well. Minimum steering input, but Nigel Greensol just following the wheel tracks of what John Spears did in the first part of the race. But Baz Jansen, as we saw in his battle with James Thorpe, loves to attack into the bus stop. No, not close enough this time, but he's not dropping away just yet.
The car's not even, it's not even four-wheel drifting, that car. It just looks like it's on rails. And it looks, I am sure it is not, and thank goodness for large non-tinted windscreens. If we watch his steering inputs, watch his hands, not maybe at La Source, which obviously is it's a much quicker corner than people give it credit for. People think it's a hairpin, it's not, and it's slightly banked, and it's probably, in your average road car, it's probably a third gear corner rather than a second, and certainly not a first. But I just want to see him through the bottom of Eau Rouge. Watch the front wheels of this blue Mustang and the amount of correction that he puts in. There was none. He just turned in and the car followed it. That was absolutely superb.
Yeah, and when you're not having to adjust your steering when you're going into Radion, that means you're taking maximum momentum, and then again it pays out all the way up that climb to Decon. Because
every time, what Bruce is saying there, every time you put steering lock in, you are turning the front wheels away from the direction of movement and travel, and therefore you are creating drag. Even if you only put 1 or 2 degrees of steering lock input into it, your outside wheel's going to turn a little bit more than your inside wheel because of the Ackerman angle and the track rod ends, etc. And it's going to just slow you down, and half a mile an hour coming over the top of Radion's probably 3 or 4, Andrew, by the time you get to Le Combe.
Yeah, absolutely. When we get to La Source, a little Formula One story from the, well, I suppose early 70s. At La Source, remember the pits were down the hill, the Formula One
yes,
pits.
Of course.
In qualifying, I think it was Denny Holm worked out he could overshoot the hairpin, go down to the hairpin, go down to the cafe or hotel there, turn around and come down the hill with more speed than if he'd been around the hairpin.
Yes.
And of course then he broke the timing beam,
yeah.
and they did a complete lap. Of course they cottoned onto it pretty quickly and put some cones and stuff there to stop it, but it was quite amusing when he first did it. So that's, I mean, a wonderful corner, and a great place for photography.
It used to be the same at the final corner at Croft, which is where I did my first ever motor race in the Fiesta Challenge back in 96, I think, or 97, supporting British touring car race. And if you missed your braking for the last hairpin before you came onto the start-finish straight, you could go into the runoff there. So instead of puttering around the final corner in first gear, you got yourself pointed in the right direction, and you were already shifting up to third by the time you exited where you were. You arrived at Clairvaux a bit quicker than you normally would have been, so you had to adjust your braking point a little bit at the pit exit.
Same theory. They also used the trick in the Buenos Aires Autodrome.
Yeah. Well, look, racing drivers are very, very clever people, and they are making decisions at a level that's... somebody said to me, their brains are clocked at a different speed, to use computer chip technology, and that's actually a really good analogy. And they see things differently, they see opportunities differently, and their ability to spot something where they can take an advantage, and that is their job. And it's up to the stewards to make sure that they clamp down on that early on. One of the best race directors that I've ever worked with is the man who's now back in charge, thank goodness, at the FIA World Endurance Championship in Le Mans. That's Eduardo Freitas, the Portuguese. And he still comes and does club races as well at various parts, including in the UK. And he sets his stall out in first practice, and he lets everybody know what they're going to get penalised for. And that is absolutely the way to do it, Bruce, because there's no point by the time you get to lap 26 of a 28-lap race if they then ping somebody for something that they've been getting away with for 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Eduardo Freitas has been just a magnificent boost to global motorsport.
Totally agree.
He's incredibly clear. He's unbelievably fair, but it's the communication he has from the outset. There are no grey areas with Eduardo. Lovely man as well, but you know, regardless of whether he's nice to have a cup of coffee with or not, he is just bang on the money in terms of.
He is nice to have a cup of coffee with. Of course, he always has the best coffee in the office. So in the paddock, he travels with the FIA WEC. He makes them travel a proper coffee machine, and a supply of coffee magically turns up, whether you're in Japan or Qatar or anywhere around the world. And I learned early on that I probably wasn't going to get a telling off if I'd been asked to go and see Eduardo in his office. The first time it happened was when I was in Fuji, actually, and I was slightly worried that I'd been summoned to Eduardo's office. He actually wanted to talk about the Code 60 procedures that Creventic were using and how that worked and how that might be incorporated. It was in the aftermath of Alan Simonson's untimely death at Le Mans, and he was running through the action plan after that, and it led to slow zones and full course yellows and things like that.
He sees the bigger picture,
and he doesn't mind whether it's not. He does not have "not invented here" syndrome. If it's good for the sport and if it's safe, he always says to me, "John, look, whatever decision I make," with that fabulous voice of his. That sonorous voice, safety first. It's safety first. Everything else comes second. I have to make a decision based on safety, and I will. And the drivers respect him for that.
Yeah, but you know, it's not a case of black and white. He understands there are shades of grey, but he makes it clear, because it's when
totally.
I say shades of grey, it's not just polar opposites. He's thought it through, and then he'll communicate incredibly clearly. Right, one thing that's incredibly clear is this race is being dominated now by Nigel Greensole. Having got past Baz Jansen, he's the best part of 5 seconds clear. But as we've seen so far in this race, both the starting driver, John Spears, and then Nigel Greensole have got the number 14 Mustang set up very, very nicely indeed. The under 2 litre class, Ed Morris has gone incredibly well since taking over the Lotus Cortina from Ivan Peter Ivanov, and he's now stretched his margin to 14-15 seconds over Christian Albrecht in the best of the Alfa Romeos. That's 5th and 6th overall, but they're heading towards the under 2 litre podium. 3rd in that class is Rory Jack, who's had a good solid race, but he's about 20 seconds down in the battle of the Alphas, in 6th place overall. Lapping still going on for Nigel Greensall with just 5 minutes remaining in the race. No need for him to take any risks in the lead Mustangs. And now for Julia Sprint GTA just in front of him, car number 40 going across the start-finish line, but he picks that off, and that's the Ehrlich car, and picks it off easily. Again, the power, John, of that 289 Mustang, certainly rather more than you'd get under the bonnet of the little Julia. 1750 versus 4.7 litres.
Let me point out, however, that look at that blue Mustang as it plummets down the hill, picking up speed all the way. I love, by the way, that they've used the area where the old Mustang badge at the back would have been for the high-intensity rain light, which they wouldn't have had in period, of course. But look at that car. That looks like it's just rolled off the truck. That has been that blue paintwork with a slight ding in the left front wing, just behind the headlight. But other than that, that car looks like it's just rolled off the truck. That must have been polished within an inch of its life. It's been out on a dirty racetrack behind cars, and the water is just beading away from that paintwork.
Yeah, no, remarkable. But actually, we were commenting last night. Basically, the rain started as drizzle about 11 o'clock, and by the time we had that last race, the Heritage Touring Car Cup, we were looking at the cars. They looked remarkably clean, but as I think Andrew pointed out, all the dirt had already been washed off the circuit by the previous downpour. So it was pure Ardennes water hitting the flanks of these cars. And this morning, of course, we got a greasy track, but there was a bit of light drizzle when we left the hotel at sort of 7 blah blah this morning. But right at this point in the race, and from the outset, the John Spears and now Nigel Greensall driven number 14 Mustang is in a class of its own. And again, driven to the edge of the circuit, not beyond, and that's always the key.
Yeah, and driving on a track that's already seen a couple of 3 lapping sessions from road-going cars as well. So yes, this is the first competitive running on the track, but there's probably been maybe as many as a couple of 100 road cars out there with all sorts of bits and bobs on the tyres and possibly dropping a little bit of oil, as is the wont with older cars. Signs of some battle scars as well on the 204 Baz Jansen. That's on the left, the right rear of that car.
Close to James Thorpe, but didn't see any point where, you know, both of them got very sideways, but didn't see any contact. But then again, it's a 7-kilometre track, so, sorry, I beg your pardon, 7.004 kilometre track.
4.0 more miles.
Yes, miles are available if you ask nicely.
Yeah, that blue, that mid-blue colour really suits the notchback Mustang, which seems to be the more popular car for racing. There would have been a fastback in 65.
Well, obviously the notchback kicked it off, but it was, I don't know whether it was lighter, but that was the one that tended to be the one that got racing, but obviously as the sort of forerunning model, it was chosen, and maybe also because it made it look more like a saloon, so it could enter British Saloon Car
very good point.
And so on and so forth. And of course, when the equivalent body, the Ford Falcon, came across as well, the GT, that was looked a larger car, but actually handled just as well as the Mustang, and it had a huge amount of similarity. And then, of course, later Ford decided its Mercury brand would have a Cougar out there racing as well, and they'd enter some XR7s. That's a little bit later in the 60s. But then so many of these models then went across and raced in Trans Am, which was just the most fantastic. And those big Boss Mustangs got in, and great names racing those. And again, the sort of manufacturer battle between the big American behemoth manufacturers, was fantastic. And then don't forget, of course, John, at that stage they had the mighty, mind-bending Can-Am series as well.
Yeah.
And plenty of diversity, as well as, of course, NASCAR and the IndyCar series. But I particularly love the Can-Am and Trans Am.
Yeah. There was a fastback in 65. The notchback, as we're calling it, is probably called the hardtop, but there was a convertible as well. The 289 available in the high performance, the K code engine, as it was called, with a GT package as well.
But you mentioned earlier Leo Coker.
Yeah.
And this is the last lap, so I'll keep this one short. He had to push and shove. In any big corporation, the people of ideas have to fight first and foremost the people with their hands on the purse, and he absolutely convinced Ford that at this stage as the Americans were really booming into the 60s. They needed something for the younger people. They didn't need a Hudson or a big Ford or a big Chevrolet or an Oldsmobile. They wanted something fun. They were starting to get money in their pockets. Boy, did he do the company a favour with pushing the Mustang to happen.
Well, can you imagine Ford without the Mustang now? It will be shortly, once the Ford Focus goes out of production in Europe, which is happening at the end of this year, I believe. It will be the only car that they still produce for global markets anywhere in the world. Everything else is an SUV or a crossover or a truck. So the Ford Mustang, there's an E-Mustang as well, of course, but the Ford Mustang will be the only car. So can you imagine Ford without the Mustang? The answer is no. And Jim Farley, who's the current head of Ford globally, who sits behind the big desk at Ford at Dearborn in the US, in Michigan, he races Mustangs, and he is a car guy through and through. Oh yes, obviously, because he's the head of Ford. You would be surprised, and I was telling a story at breakfast this morning, which I won't go into now, but you would be surprised how many people at the very, very top of major automotive manufacturers, they know the business and they are Ford business people, but they might not be petrol heads. Jim Farley's a petrol head. I think he'll be racing a Mustang Challenge car at Le Mans.
Well, think about Ford coming to race in the hypercar class. That's Jim Farley.
That's Jim Farley.
You know, he's as soon as I first read about him,
Farley.
I was encouraged. And then when I heard him interviewed for the first time when he came across to Goodwood, not just to look, but to race. But he appreciates it. He's got a two-role life. One is running a major corporation, but it's also giving it direction again. Hugely important. Right, Nigel Greensill will put a smile on his face because he's got a few more corners to go, and it will be a Ford victory. And really from the opening couple of corners in this race, those quartet of 289 cubic inch Mustangs were clearly getting to pull clear. It's a power circuit, but they've kept it neat and tidy, I must say, on a track that was very, very tricky indeed.
This mid-blue coloured car, John Spires started it off and did his job. Big sideways four-wheel drift by Baz Jansen. That has been conspicuous by its actions. Any moving around, any sidewaysness, any even rear-wheel drifting. Is Nigel going to light it up? No, there's a dab of Oppo, but mere dab of Oppo as he comes out the final corner to take the first race of Sunday. The classic Touring Challenge. Won this Super Sunday by John Spires and Nigel.